So here's the thing about Gamergate.
Oh boy.
Gamergate got mad at the game because it didn't have a gate.
Well, there is no. You know what?
There is no bottom.
Due. There is no gate in Gone Home.
Welcome to The Worst of All Possible Worlds, the first and only podcast where white guys talk to you about stuff.
I'm the worst of all possible AJs.
And I'm the worst of all possible Brians.
And today we are playing the Fulbright Company's 2013 masterful meander around an old house where the purpose of the game is to find the porn of every single member of your family. Gone Home. So Brian,
yes.
Let's talk about Gone Home because it is absolutely one of my favorite games of all time. But what is your experience with it? When did you first play it? And what was your initial reaction to the game?
So I guess I've played Gone Home 3 times now. Third time for this. Second time I wasn't the one playing, but I had someone else play it on my computer, and I was there the whole time.
Did they have headphones on, or were you at least able to like watch the game?
No, we were.
Or was it
no. My friend was like playing it, and we were both just sitting there and talking and going through the game together.
Aww.
It was fun.
Yeah.
And that friend also picked up every single object in the house and threw it on the floor.
Yeah. No, that's how I play.
But turned off the lights every time they left a room.
What?
Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Brian,
you're making a disaster of this house, but so I'm like, why are you turning out the lights? This is taking up so much time. Like, I don't want to waste electricity. I said, you're wasting real electricity by spending time throwing every goddamn cup on the floor.
There's actually a really funny story about the development of Gone Home, that one of the playtesters was leaving every room and turning off the lights as they left. And then there's a note on the board upstairs,
yes,
on the little bulletin board that says, "You're as bad as your sister. Stop wasting electricity and turn off the lights when you leave the room." And the playtester for it told the people, they're like, "Well, is that a problem?" And she's like, No, I just assumed that I learned my lesson while I was in Europe.
The Europeans are, there is a much greater cultural taboo around leaving a light on when you leave the room.
That's how the ghosts get in. Steve Gaynor says that, it was his way of being like, that was like our way of like checking in on the player, of like revealing, pulling back the curtain and waving at you, at the player and be like, "Hi, we're here. We know what you're doing. We know exactly what you're doing." But it also just says that he was like, I was so surprised by players' ability to meet us halfway.
Yeah.
Or how much they wanted to sort of explore the house. But
and
you were saying
there is such a deep respect for players in this game. I remember reading about Gone Home. I don't think, maybe it wasn't available for Mac, or I didn't know if my device could play it. Then it was in a Humble Bundle. So I bought it with a bunch of other things and thought, okay, I'm going to download it, see if it actually works. And it kind of did. It has some performance issues. I mean, I just played it on a newer device and it still has some performance issues.
Even in the commentary track, the guy who designed the doors still says there's still bugs in there that we will never be able to fix.
Well, if you talk to game developers, doors are the worst thing. In every single game, they're like one of the single hardest things to design for a multitude of reasons.
Doors and cables, right? Which is why a lot of the Last of Us 2 discussion, at least in the game design world, was how they got the cable to react as, naturally as it did. But the doors, I will say, in Gone Home are also big, chunky boys. I don't know.
Yeah, they're thick.
Yeah, they're like armored doors. Also, one of the conceits of the game that I did not notice, my first time playing through, I don't know if you did, but they actually swing on like Wild West hinges. You can open them one way or the other, and it's just because players kept getting stuck in rooms.
And really, if you play any game, that tends to be the solution they come up with, whether Rockstar made it or Fulbright or even Hotline Miami, right, where the doors are just like a line on the ground. They open both ways all the time because just get rid of the problem.
Yeah, right. Because I mean,
just get it out of the way.
As a player, you don't want to spend a lot of time like standing there trying to maneuver getting around a door you just opened.
Yeah,
right. You want to just be able to keep going. But yeah, that was one of the things. And then the other thing that they did not include in the game that I think is very, very funny is there are no shoes in the house of Gone Home.
Yeah.
And they're like, nobody ever called us out for it. Why is this house, full of people, but there were no shoes? If that's what you're focused on while playing this game, I think maybe you've missed the forest for the trees. I came into Gone Home, I think originally on Steam, and then was completely enraptured by it. I think my first playthrough was 4 hours. Like, I spent a really long time, like, reading over stuff.
Well, you had to throw everything on the floor.
I did. I am a trash goblin, and it's so much fun. One of my favorite trophies in the game, or achievements that you can get, is just turning on all the taps. You get an achievement called the Wet Bandits.
See, and I think that the achievements weren't there when I played it, so it still must have been relatively new, because I know they added achievements later on, but I played this time and I got a couple of achievements, and I thought, I definitely did this before.
There's one that I will never be able to get. I have tried a lot to get it. I think I have now played Gone Home 8 or 9 times. But I've beaten Gone Home 16 because I was trying to get the speedrunner trophy. Oh. You have to beat Gone Home in under a minute, which is a thing you can technically do, but is so difficult that I don't think I'll ever be able to do it. Apparently, you slow down when you turn, so you have to like memorize.
The speedrun is something that's actually going to come up later, I guess, because people have an issue with how fast the speed run is.
I recently played it on console, which I think is really fun. I actually really love playing it with commentary mode on, because the sense of joy that you get from the creators of this game and how much fun they had, like, on just the most boring stuff imaginable in the game. There was an old blog post I found where one of the designers was talking about how she really wanted to like capture like the 1995 feel and to combine like old antique furniture with like, what was hip and happening in the mid 90s. And she has a very particular catalog from Sears from 1990. And there's a part of the commentary where you go into like the parents' bedroom and the guy's just like, look how ugly this wicker furniture is.
Well, and that recreation of the 90s is so well done. This is a great example of a game where form dictates content, right? They wanted to make a game where you walk around a house and read letters, right? Because they just wanted to do kind of what they did at the end of Minerva's Den, but for a whole game.
Right, which they had worked on.
They worked on Minerva's Den and then moved on from the AAA sphere to do this.
Which I think was actually the strongest DLC of BioShock 2.
Some people consider it the strongest DLC of any game, period.
I think that's a very valid argument. Yeah. Why aren't they called Big Brothers? Why are they Big Daddies?
Well, because Ken Levine is a kinky freak. We don't allow him at Pride anymore.
What's really funny is Steve Gaynor in his GDC conference keynote speech, which we'll get to a little bit later, called "Why Is Gone Home a Game?"
That's great.
He shows a picture of Ken Levine at one point. He's like, "Look at that little sweetie," and I was like, "It broke my brain in half to hear that man described as a sweetie."
I don't think I'd ever call any of my bosses that. Even as a joke, because it makes me feel very weird.
Like, I don't know. I think in order to create any video game on a AAA level, you have to sort of inspire a cult of personality. And it seems as though in the founding of Fulbright Studio, the Fulbright company, later Fulbright, that Steve Gaynor really wanted to escape that. He and his collaborators, Janneman Nordhagen and Carla Zimonia, wanted to escape that sort of system of tight deadlines and schedules and just kind of make a game on their own terms.
Yeah.
And so they founded the studio in March of 2020, and they later brought on Kate Craig as an environmental artist in August of 2012, which was basically the 4 people that worked on Gone Home.
They didn't just work together. They all lived, except for Kate, who is a Canadian, they all lived in the same house.
In the Fulbright house, they called it. They programmed this in a basement. Like, when people talk about indie game development, it can't get much more indie than being in a basement of a house in Portland, Oregon, making a game about wandering around a bigger house in Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, and that's actually such an interesting detail too, that it's like this is a very, very personal game. When they figured out the mechanics of what they wanted to do and they started telling a story, they're like, well, what if it's about being a teenager in the Pacific Northwest? Great, let's do it.
Yeah.
And they went for it, and they created the era so well.
Oh, yeah.
Like the wicker furniture, the like center space, like in the living room where they have to drag a lamp in, and there's like a wire running across the floor.
Yeah.
The bookshelves that are full of videotapes that they taped off of TV. Which I don't know about you. Me as a little kid, that was probably 80% of our tapes.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, the ones that we had new were like Disney movies.
Because you got the shells with them, the really lovely plastic
with
shells.
the smell under the label.
Yeah. What?
You've never... Okay, so just next time you're around one, open it up, you know, so that the label is sticking up a little, and just take a little sniff underneath.
I'm really scared to now, Brian. Why? What?
I'm normal. I'm normal, God damn it. I'm not weird. You're weird. You've killed people.
Does it get you high, Brian?
I mean, it might. I don't know.
And look, can we add allegedly to the murder thing? I'd rather not.
You've killed people who have alleged things about you.
Okay,
because of the allegations. You murdered them for real. Convicted in a court of law.
The only allegations against me are the ones that I had at the mini golf course in Palm Beach, Florida, and those are alligatoritions.
This is actually how he murders people. No, I want to talk about tapes for a second. I still want to go back to tapes. I'm sorry. I'm just the vivid memories of this, and also as a Pacific Northwest memory, because I was born in Neah Bay, Washington, which is the Makah Nation. It is at the very tip of the peninsula of Washington State.
I'd forgotten about this. Yes,
we got very little TV. Right, we just had an antenna, and the weather is always bad because it's Washington.
Sure.
Occasionally we would get Canadian Parliament across the pond in BC or something. I don't know.
So you have like a very fundamental understanding of how Canadian Parliament works, Brian?
Well, not me. I was an infant, and not my parents either, because, I don't know, they just let it wash over them. I think they just had it on to have some static in the background, and literally it was mostly static. And then on the really good days, we could get some TV from Seattle, and we could watch Sunday Night Almost Live, which was a Seattle-based sketch comedy show that not only started the TV career of Bill Nye, but of Joel McHale as well.
Really?
Yep. Bill Nye, it's great. I mean, you can go to YouTube.
I guess I never tracked that he started in sketch?
Yeah. Yeah, he was like a sketch and improv guy, and he already lived in Washington because he was a Boeing engineer.
Fascinating.
So I guess that's just how, and you know, we don't really have like these great local shows in other places, but Seattle had Almost Live. And he played a superhero in one sketch called Speedwalker. Extremely 90s.
God, what a time capsule.
Like Seattle was kind of the center of the world, and everyone was watching Twin Peaks and, you know.
And Frasier?
And Frasier. Yes.
People were watching Frasier,
People
Brian.
were watching Frasier. For 10 years.
Yeah.
It's a very long-running show.
And Brian, they're going to watch him again.
They'll do it. They'll watch that crazy little Christian Scientist until he's in the ground.
Well, I mean, as we all know, he's going to die fucking an alligator on the money plane.
Yep.
That's how Kelsey Grammer dies.
I don't know how they're going to do that show without the dad, but so...
Yeah, I mean, he was the fulcrum. He's the only reason the show works. It doesn't matter.
So a lot of the movies that we had were taped by my grandparents down in San Diego.
Hell yeah.
And they would also tape episodes of MASH, which is my parents' favorite TV show, and they would mail it up to us in Neah Bay so that we could watch MASH. So like we had big wooden bookshelves just full of Maxell or JVC home videotapes with, you know, TV versions of the Indiana Jones movies and whatever else with the commercials and everything.
Yeah.
And I feel like that wasn't that unusual for people our age to have when we were little kids.
Oh, absolutely not. When I was growing up, I didn't see the entirety of The Wizard of Oz until I think I was 21, because my parents had recorded it, but for some reason they had started recording it in Oz. So where I thought the movie
didn't have any of the black
was,
and white stuff.
No, where I thought the movie began was Dorothy walked out the door and she was in Oz. I was 4. it didn't matter. Like, that's where movies start. And then at the end of the film, they stopped recording when she clicked her 3 heels together, and that was the end of the movie.
Like, he doesn't need to see this.
No credits. My mom actually thought she thought Margaret Hamilton would scare me too much, so they purposely cut that
not
part
as
out.
the green fucking witch that's cackling and chasing her around.
Brian, let me do a quick sidebar to tell a story about my mother.
Yes, please.
I recently told my parents to watch BoJack Horseman because it's one of my favorite shows of all time, and I think they would really like it because they generally tend to like the same kind of comedy stuff that I do, and they also really like the high cerebral kind of stuff that BoJack provides.
Yeah.
And, I was just like, the first season, it can be a little rough start. The first couple episodes can be, it takes a little while for them to find their voice. But then once they do, it's off to the races, a horse pun.
Off to the horse races.
There it is. Thank you. And so they started watching it. And then I checked in with them like maybe a week later. And I was like, so how are you enjoying BoJack? She's like, oh, we had to stop watching that show. And I was like, oh, well, Mom, it does get better. I don't mean to like pressure you, but like, why did you stop watching the show? And she said, well, he was a horse. And I was like, what? She's like, well, he was a horseman. So who cares? So I think my mom has this delineation where like what things that are high fantastical can't affect me because they're not real. You know what I mean? But the Wizard of Oz first part seems real. And that would have scared me because that probably scared her.
My parents were always so afraid of us getting nightmares from stuff. So there was so much that my parents would bawdlerize. Our home video taped off of TNT copy of Raiders of the Lost Ark, they switched the channel, of course, for the face melting scene.
Of course.
And so,
I mean, that's still traumatizing as an adult.
That tape to me growing up was they open up the Ark and then a Popeye cartoon starts playing for a few minutes. Because they just switched the channel while it was recording.
Wait. When it comes back.
And so Popeye just beats the shit out of Bluto. And then it like sort of briefly flashes back and you see the glasses dude head explode. And then it goes back to Popeye real fast.
There's actually some interesting points about those videotapes in Gone Home. In the commentary track again, if you look at the VHS like really close up, the ones that are in like bold marker with like bigger strokes, those are Dad's movies. And the ones written in longhand are, I believe, Katie's movies. So the X-Files ones are actually Katie's picks and Sam's picks, not necessarily the Dad's. But the Dad movies they picked, Brian, are so good and so on point. The Andromeda Strain is in that collection, and
my dad loves that movie.
Of course, every dad loves that movie. It's the perfect dad movie. Do you want to know why? There's a problem, it's a big problem, and then a bunch of people work together and they solve that problem. Dad movies always resolve around big insurmountable problems getting solved.
Well, and there's also a very good reason why Dad Greenbrier, Terrence, would be attracted to big problems that get solved easily.
Yeah.
And he also writes about big problems that get solved easily.
With, until his final book,
right.
The Accidental Human, where he fixes the biggest problem of all, himself.
Yeah.
I know that sounds like saccharine and sappy, but I actually really love the dad arc in this.
The game is very clever in how it paces out each story. I mean, of course, it's, I guess, formulaic. It's just very well done. But, they introduce the character, they bring them down to the low point, and then they pull them back up at the end.
Right.
For all of them. And so for Dad, you have him just move to this house that he used to visit when he was a kid.
Right.
And has been a failed writer for like the last 10 or 15 years, like hasn't been able to get anything published in a really long time.
Gone Home plays with a lot of like very weird, like misdirects as you go.
Yeah.
When you enter into the house, you think this is a murder mystery and everyone is dead, or like something really bad is in the attic.
Creaking floorboards above you. There's thunder and lightning and heavy
the lights
rain
flicker
outside.
on and off.
Yeah, lots of heavy rain. Just a guy just shouting, Jason!
Jason! Well,
that's the genius on display.
Well, I mean, you can't cage the cage.
Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage directs video games.
He has a lot to say about robots and about Detroit.
Look, we got to talk about Detroit. We got to put robots in Detroit, and then everyone's going to care about racism.
Have you ever tried to half-bake a theory about racism? I have.
Do not bother me with level design ideas when I'm sitting in the geode. How many fucking times do we have to go over this?
I want to find a piece of paper on the ground, and I want to lean down. I want to pick it up, and then I want to accidentally drop it and have to lean down, try and pick it up, and get drop it that time. But the third time, I'm also going to drop it.
There's very early on in Gone Home, you walk into the bathroom and you find that there is a magazine that says, write like Stephen King. And that's sort of the first, little hint that maybe something weird's going on in this house. First of all, it's 1:15 in the morning. Where is everybody? Why aren't they home? All the lights are off. And, there is a sort of terror about this, this is the first time that Katie is exploring this house, right? The protagonist. But it's also, it feels like a homecoming. It feels like she is going home, like actually reckoning with her past in a lot of ways. It
starts with a voicemail back then, a message that you leave your parents on the phone when you're at the airport. You say, I'm going to get home. Don't worry. I ran out, she doesn't say this, but it's because she ran out of money while she was in Europe. So she came home a little bit quicker than she expected.
Right.
And you get to the front door and there is a note. So your sister Sam was there earlier today and maybe just left or just disappeared, I should say.
And there's a couple of clues scattered throughout the game that is another misdirect, that it could actually be a suicide note.
Yeah.
In her room, there's a magazine by her bedside of Kurt Cobain, and then on her wall is the Drowning Ophelia painting. Yeah. So there are a couple of things that lead you down that road, but again, all a very clever misdirect.
I would say it's actually not a clever misdirect. It's a 100% unintentional misdirect.
Really?
The creators had no idea when they were writing it that they were implying she committed suicide in any way. And then started hearing from people who were talking about that as being like, I was kind of once you get to that attic, you're kind of expecting the worst.
Yeah.
Then they went back and played and they're like, oh yeah, holy shit. You could totally think that it's one of the most perfect accidents that can be made.
Right.
But it is 100% indeliberate.
But it's just like there's so many, and then honestly, even the blood in the bathtub, with the hair dye misdirect. Yeah. Like you're just like I think the audio log coming in immediately there and being like it's so intimate touching someone's scalp. Yeah. And you're like, oh wow, it is very intimate touching someone's scalp.
And you come into the thing about the horror thing. You come into the house. You see the answering machine, you're like, oh, I'll walk up to that because you're probably just going to hear your own message. And then you hear these two really distressing, like someone who has maybe just been crying and is like
back to back.
And it's like kind of broken up. Not much is said. And it's like, oh, shit is really bad. What is happening here?
Just a shout out to the voice actor for Sam, who I think almost single-handedly carries the entire game on her shoulders, Sarah Grayson. It is remarkable how after 6 playthroughs of this game, how lines like, I think she could tell after Lonnie and Sam hug. Also, I don't think you can, in what I think is the best audio log in the whole thing. And in the commentary, Sarah Grayson says it's also her favorite one, Dedication, which you find in the hallway near the end of the game, right before you go into the greenhouse.
Yeah, Sarah Grayson does fabulous work all the way through. The little hints of other voice work is all spot on. The great attention to detail where they have all of these one-off characters and then the main characters. Each one has to be written by literally, like their handwriting has to be done by a different person.
In a game that is this focused, it is really the details and stuff that matter. Yeah. Like one of their big obsessions was making sure that every light source in the house had a corresponding plug and wire leading to that
And so it's easy to come into this game and just sort of think of it as like an early walking simulator, which it is, but really where it shines is just getting all of these little tiny details in there. It's just trying to be very grounded and naturalistic. The fact that it's a walking simulator just comes from the fact that they wanted to make a game about discovery and nothing else.
Yeah, and exploration. It's like, what if a game was just audio logs?
So before this we had Dear Esther, which started as a mod in the Half-Life 2 engine, and then years later got a full commercial release. I think the mod was like 2008. And of course, there's a lot of mods out there where it is more linear. You just kind of walk around and talk to people, and then that's how the story gets told. And it's good. People like it. And
it's a fun and perfectly valid way of interacting with media.
And Dear Esther comes out in 2012. That's also the interesting thing. Is like a lot of people are working on this idea at the same time. It's not like one starts and then people get the idea and make their own walking simulators.
Right. So, there was just something in the air that was bringing everything together.
Yeah. So like it was easier to get distribution on a very small game, and just people with a desire to tell something in a very minimal way. You can have an RPG Maker type game like To the Moon. You can have a Dear Esther type game where it's just like Gone Home, where it's first person and you're walking around and you have some narration and some ghosts. I mean, Dear Esther has less interaction. You just walk around.
Oh, much less,
and see things. And then earlier in the year that Gone Home came out, that's when Proteus comes out, which is the most minimal of all the walking simulators, where it just plants you on an island and that's it. You just walk around. I've
never played Proteus, but from everything I've heard about it, it is just like, well, that's a tree.
Yeah.
Sure is a tree.
Just a nice little thing. And Flower and Journey, which of course have goals and have things for you to go to.
Yeah.
Those are also coming out around this time. They're bigger, they have larger budgets, but they're still minimal in their presentation and in what they want to do and what they want to tell you.
So all of these things are sort of coming up together, and the inspirations for Gone Home, I think, are very interesting and varied. One of the big ones being, and Brian, I'll cede, I think, a lot of this to you because you are an expert in the field. But the immersive theater scene in New York was a huge inspiration, and particularly Sleep No More, which is a punch-drunk show that debuted in 2011 and is still running to this day, obviously not because of the pandemic, but
it's coming back.
Yeah, I mean, of course it will. I mean, there's so many dancers in the city whose bodies they still need to break.
So Sleep No More comes from a British group called Punch Drunk Theatre. They made a bunch of stuff in the UK, and somewhere along the way they got a deal to come to the US, and they started working on Sleep No More in Boston, used a ton of unpaid labor, and then Leonardo DiCaprio helped them find a space in Chelsea, and they built this 5-story walk-through immersive show that runs through the plot of Macbeth and not really the book so much, but the Alfred Hitchcock movie Rebecca.
Yes.
Although the murder actually does happen in it, which the Alfred Hitchcock movie, he's like, oh, and then she tripped and died. I didn't want to kill Rebecca, but she had a gun pointed at my face, and then she fell right there. It killed her, and then I dumped her body in the water. Anyway, now will you help me, my current wife? So it interweaves these stories. It kind of has this film noir thing going on. There's lots of nudity and blood, and the story cycles 3 times. So you kind of see a thread, and then you can follow it the next time around as the story loops.
And each one of those loops is about an hour long. Contained within that hour are 19 binders worth of scripts. And
you can see the BioShock influence.
You can open any drawer you want, and
there's lots of notes. And those notes were provided by, again, unpaid labor. And sometimes they're not as good at restocking, but there's lots of other story that you can come across. I mean, good luck reading them, because that is one of the darkest shows in history.
Yeah, you really got to save them for later. Those are things you nick for the McKittrick.
I guess that's the smart way to do it. I never stole anything. But you want to watch the dancers. You don't want to just sit there reading a note.
Some people do. Some people, that's all they want to go there for. Yeah.
Sleep No More is one of those really smart moments in immersive theater where they actually take from video games, which is not as common as it should be.
Yeah, I get that. That's a big question I have, Brian. I feel like whenever I go to immersive theater, it feels very much like playing Gone Home. I feel
Yeah.
similarly
the
to
good
that.
ones. Yeah.
Especially with the masks in
Right.
Sleep No
So
More.
in Sleep No More, you also wear a mask to sort of anonymize yourself. And it really helps you separate out like who's the audience and who's the actor in that space, especially because it's so dark. Gone Home specifically has had a massive impact on the immersive theater world. There are a lot of people who design, who basically just want to do Gone Home. Which just by nature of doing it in a different medium makes it a different thing. So the most famous example, it's exceptionally well done from everything I've heard. It had a sold out run in when was that, 17? And it started having another sold out run right before COVID hit and it's starting up again. And it's pretty safe because it's only 1 or 2 people come in at a time. It's called The Nest. It was designed by a bunch of ex-Imagineers.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it was like in a shed in someone's backyard for the initial run. Now I think it's in a larger space and they've kind of expanded it. The original version is what I know. Where you are sort of working with a lawyer to help execute this old dead lady's estate.
Interesting.
And instead of it being, because that could go in like the Woman in Black territory, but instead it's Gone Home. It's Gone Home. It's just you're doing Gone Home. You go into this shed. There's all this shit lying around. You find a cassette tape. You put the cassette tape in a tape player. You have a phone, like if you need help. Or whatever, there's like the lawyer talking to you. You have a flashlight, and the flashlight is remote controlled, so it can start to flicker out sometimes.
Oh, interesting.
And leave you in the dark. And so you hear the tapes, and you start to hear about this old woman's life. And then usually the tape, or whatever you found the tape in, has the code or the clue to the next thing that you open. Right, just like on Home, where all you do is you find the number, you put in the number, you find the key, you put the key in the lock.
You find the secret compartment, yeah.
It's very deliberately not something that you solve, not something that you compete against, and not something that you fail. So you find every single point, and yeah, people love it. It's in California, so I hadn't had a chance to see it when it was running because I was doing my own immersive show that wasn't anywhere near as good. I hope I can catch this run at some point.
Yeah, well, it is fascinating that Gone Home was initially inspired by Sleep No More, by immersive theater, which was itself originally inspired by BioShock, which is sort of the progenitor of all of this, because then with BioShock, Sleep No More, and then Sleep No More led to Gone Home, and then Gone Home has now led to The Nest and a lot of other immersive shows. So it really does seem like immersive theater and video games are in like constant conversation and have been for like the past 10 years and will only continue to do so, I think, going forward.
And I think anyone, this might make some enemies. I don't know. Anyone who makes immersive theater and doesn't play video games is a dunce. Like you are intentionally, this is for all you immersive theater makers listening to my podcast right now. If you you are shutting yourself off from learning basic things that other people have learned ages ago using a very similar medium. And it goes the same way. I think if you make video games, you should also check out immersive theater. And you might actually discover experiential possibilities that you didn't think of from your desk.
If you're working in video games, you probably have money, and immersive theater desperately needs it.
Yes.
So please,
please, God.
I would like to also just briefly before we go to our first commercial, I would like to speak about one other influence on Gone Home, and that is the Royal House in Japan. It's an abandoned house in the middle of the woods. I actually couldn't find an address for exactly where this is, but it's in an overgrown forest. The way I came across it was that it was cited as an inspiration for Gone Home. There's a blog spot by this guy named Jordi Miao, who is a French photographer who is based in Tokyo, and he documented this house. And what's so fascinating about it is that it looks like it's been abandoned for about 10 years, but it is a modern house. It was built in like the 1930s and is filled with just bric-a-brac and like photos and pictures and like specifically family photos. And while exploring the house, all these mysteries started cropping up. There seemed to be a white man that was included in every single photo that he got to calling the foreigner in it. And
like a white man.
Like a white man.
Not like a ghostly apparition.
Oh no, not a ghostly apparition. Okay. Like an actual photograph of like this white guy. But there were also like old family photos of like people meeting the Queen of England were also there, and there were like all these like huge question marks started popping up. Like, who are these people? And there was a room that he couldn't get into that was locked from the outside that everyone was speculating, that's like a murder room or something. And it sort of exploded in this blogosphere. Turns out the locked door was a bathroom. And the house is now rotted to the point where you can't even get to the second floor anymore.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating looking at all these photos of the royal house and how it really does look like Gone Home. Like the same like sort of sparks that activate in your head when you're looking at like old family photos of the Greenbriers are also here. And like how much a single photograph can contain like the mysteries of this whole family's legacy. And it's so cool that there's this sort of like primal instinct to want to explore in the way that they figured out when that woman said, I'd learned my lesson about turning off lights. Like, we as humans desperately want to explore these homes, and you don't need guns and explosions or, like rip dudes committing war crimes in order to
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Not there's anything wrong with war crimes, Brian Alford.
Put it on my tombstone.
Just that you don't need any of that stuff in order to make a good game. But as it turns out, and we will find out after this commercial break, some people really need that stuff.
Listeners, do you like Florida? Do you like the smell of sizzling asphalt? Do you like golf but wish it were smaller? Then come on down to Harry Hapsburg's Hole in Fun mini golf course and gun depot, located in scenic Palm Beach, Florida. Harry Hapsburg's Hole in Fun mini golf course and gun depot, or HHHIFMGCGD, has a little something for the whole family. Thrill at our newly installed water fountain, which dribbles the finest Florida water, sometimes into your mouth. And our single lone umbrella, perfect for avoiding the sun, which is actively trying to kill you. Get a hole-in-one on our newest attraction, the Cove of Dead Manatees, and receive a 25% discount on our famous Sea Cow Burger, made with real meat, the origins of which we are not legally allowed to disclose. So slather on that sunblock to protect you from the, I cannot stress this enough, homicidal gas giant we call our sun. And come on down to Harry Hapsburg's Hole in Fun mini golf course and gun depot. Habsburg's Hole in Fun mini golf course and gun depot. We put the gun in a hole in gun. Harry Hapsburg's Hole in Fun mini golf course gun depot is a subsidiary of Habsburg's Eclectic and Legal Potables Incorporated. All rights reserved. Member FDIC. Beware the sun.
Hey, AJ.
Yeah.
Have you ever listened to a commercial?
Yes.
That's cool. So did I. I'm going to record the second half right in here.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
And we're back.
Yep.
Before we get into discussions about the backlash to this game, I think it would be good for us to say why this game is great, because it is. It goes so much deeper, I think, than most games of this ilk and type. Like, if you really want to get into it, there's like the nitty gritty of stuff like invoices for like electrical things that you could really like get into the weeds on. But every single character in the game has a complete, beautiful arc. The mom has to learn to deal with her horny friend Carol, who desperately wants the mom to commit adultery.
She really wants, like, that's all she's got. Like,
it's all
she just needs someone she knows to have sex.
Not her. She's just like,
it's just not going to happen for her. Like, she's over it now at this point. Like, she's resigned to the rest of her life, but she needs somebody else to get down. Get down and real filthy.
And it's so like even the insight into Carol's life, a character that is outside the Greenbrier family, and for all intents and purposes we should not care about, but I find myself caring about her because she's just like, it's sad that Terrence is going through all these like low moments right now, but that's just how marriage works. Some days you'll be fine, and then there'll be long stretches where you're not, and you're like, oh Carol, someone needs to introduce you to Ranger Rick. Take you to an Earth, Wind, and Fire concert and rock your fucking world.
Well, and that's the other thing is like this family is going through a lot right now.
It's like every major crisis is happening at the same time.
Right. It's like, well, they're moving and, that their daughter has to change schools. They're a very religious family and they're not handling well that their daughter is gay. And then their older daughter is just in Europe somewhere, and the only communication they really have with her is the occasional postcard or maybe a phone call from a payphone or something. But
and all the postcards are like, I'm having the time of my life. Meanwhile, the family is imploding slowly in on itself.
And Sam, the sister, everyone just refers to the house that she lives in as the psycho house, because the man living there was mentally unwell. Deeply. She kind of has a connection with their old childhood friend who she doesn't really like, but he has a Super Nintendo.
This last playthrough, funnily enough, I usually don't track Daniel as an arc.
Daniel gets a whole thing.
Yeah, I zoomed in like wholly on Daniel, and there are a lot of references to him. I think it's so sad that Sam's like, he's like a default friend. He grew up next door to me. I don't really care about him. And poor Daniel, it's very clear that Sam was the only thing Daniel has going for him.
I'll bring the Nintendo over here. Yeah, I'll leave it with you too. Yeah, I just, because then we can hang out again, because I'll have to come back and get it.
Yeah, but then like when he comes over in that wonderful scene after everything is sort of fallen apart with Lonnie, and Sam and Daniel are sitting at the table, and she's just like, I'm just so sad we're not friends anymore. And Daniel just holds her and says everything's gonna be all right. Like, Daniel's a good dude, man. Like, Daniel seems to have really grown into himself.
Like, he's a weirdo, but like, poor thing. The game doesn't take a simple melodramatic route to this. It lets the characters be complex. It lets them be kind of assholes to certain people. And I mean, the experience of being gay is mostly pretty true to the 90s. The only unrealistic thing is that she actually has a girlfriend.
Who's in the ROTC, which is another big thing.
They play Street Fighter together. She came up with this whole thing because Lonnie would play Street Fighter at the 7-Eleven. So she's like, oh, I have a Nintendo at home.
Stole from my friend.
She got from Daniel, who was just desperate to hang out with her again. And she like has this hidden note where she figured out all of Chun-Li's
trying to show off for her girlfriend.
And then, someone spray paints Dyke on her locker door. And so then Lonnie just goes, yeah, fuck it. I'll just spray it on my door too. And then Lonnie gets the boot.
Yeah, very dangerous move also if you're in the ROTC to do that. Yeah. Well, and Lonnie is allowed to be messy. I think there's an audio diary that's all about how I just don't get Lonnie, and I don't think that Lonnie gets Lonnie. And it's like, well, no one gets themselves when they're a teenager. It's flailing in the dark.
Well, and also this family, the Greenbriers, they don't get themselves at all. Jan is trying so desperately to save her marriage. There's this great thing where you see a weekly planner and it's like couples bowling, tango lessons, and cooking class. It's like Monday, Wednesday, Friday for these 3 things. And it's, multiple weeks down, and the bowling and the tango classes all get crossed out, and it's just cooking class.
That's all she has now.
And then there's one day where it's like, today I'm cooking for the whole family.
Yeah.
And then that's the day that Sam is like, oh, I'm going to go hang out with Lonnie.
I didn't even make that. I have never made that connection.
And she's handling this huge project. You're right. She's doing a controlled burn in Oregon. Controlled burns, you have to control fire. It's not easy. It's
this
a lot of work.
This is a prequel to Firewatch. Not a lot of people know that.
And Firewatch, of course, also owes quite a bit to this game and decides, hey, you know how Gone Home gets sad and then finds some happy things? What if we just skipped that last part? What if we started insurmountably bleak and then just got worse.
It sounds like the worst of all possible worlds. Ooh. So a lot of the marital like stresses that seem to be afflicting this family is that like Terrence has completely retreated into himself, and of course he would. He's in the house where he was molested as a child.
Yeah. Well, so this is an interesting thing. You can play through this game and not I mean, you could play through this game and not find anything. The game is not about how to get to the end. It's about just what you
Again,
read.
you could beat the game.
It's not what you do along the way. It's about what you read.
It's also could be beaten in a minute. So like, there's not, it's not about winning.
But there is a part that's kind of designed so that you could sort of forget about it once you get in the groove of getting to the very end.
It's in the basement section. And it's like, okay, so we got to go down, and then we're almost there.
And the password to that safe is a little tricky. Either you find the secret door to your character's bedroom and then find it in a note that's kind of tucked under where that secret door was, or you realize that the height marks on the wall are important and you put that code into the safe down there in the
and it's
basement.
also, you can also guess it based on the novels too. If you're just like thinking about like years that are important, like four number combinations, since the Kennedy assassination was 1963 and that happened to coincide with the event that leads to it. And so I guess it's time we talk about Uncle Oscar, the ghost that is haunting the house, and who by all accounts seems to be like a deeply repentant monster.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's also clearly very ill in a lot of ways.
He has a lot of painkillers in that safe that you're able to open.
He was a pharmacist who at some point retreats away from everything, takes care of his mother. His sister goes on to have kids, and then her son ends up being your character's dad. He has like newspapers all collected in the basement. This house was probably a much bigger mess before you showed up.
I mean, the kitchen had to be completely renovated because it was all old-timey stuff. Like, it was like
it's filthy, and he was hoarding. There's a weird sort of back passage in the house where he has this homemade cross that he's sort of like pinned together and wrote the beginning of John 3:16 on there.
Yeah, and if you stare at it too long, the light above you explodes.
And if you look at the walls, they're also lined with all of these advertisements, and a lot of them are for children's clothing.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that. Holy shit. Oof.
And so once you get to the safe, once you figure out how to open the safe, there's a long hallway and a dark room with a broken light that you can't see anything in. And you open it up, and you find a letter from 1973 that's written to your grandmother from your great uncle. And it's his last letter to her, and it comes back to him unsent. That's why it's in the house. It like undeliverable, because she's not at that address anymore. And so this old letter, through it, just simple implication, and through looking at the height marks on the wall that they stopped visiting after 1963, makes it pretty clear that he crossed the lines of propriety in some way or another.
Well, I mean, the thing you didn't talk about in the closet is that there's also a toy in there.
Yeah, it's a dark room for like lumber or something, or firewood at the end of the hallway, and there's just a little like toy horse.
And the light won't turn on. And, we talked earlier about how just putting this immense faith in the player and trust in the player, all they had to tell you, all they had to give you was a dark closet, a purposefully broken light, and a toy horse, an old toy horse in the corner. Yeah. And you fill in all the blanks yourself.
And if you look at the other letters, there's a letter that he sends your father in 1972, right after he gets married. That's like, congratulations on your marriage, not much more than that. At that point, when you read it, that's early in the game. It's like, okay, here's just a note from the weird shut-in relative I don't know anything about. And then in 73, he writes up his will, which is in a filing cabinet, that wills the house to your parents, which is also when he writes the final letter to your grandmother. the height markings they show the last time your dad was at that house was November of 1963. Thanksgiving, just a few days after John F. Kennedy was shot.
Right.
And your dad writes science fiction stories about someone who's constantly traveling back to 1963 to stop the Kennedy assassination.
Yeah. It's very clearly him grappling with that trauma.
Yeah.
Most of the times that I tear up or like get very emotional playing Gone Home are mostly with the audio logs. That's something that really obviously sticks in my heart. But the one moment that I cry just looking at an item is when you find his crumpled up manuscript of The Accidental Human in a garbage can, and written across in red ink in what you assume to be Jan, the mom's handwriting, is "Don't give up on this." You know, it's that one moment that makes me buy that at the end they're going to go to couples counseling and they're going to like try and they're actually going to like make it out of this okay. Instead of taking their anniversary weekend, you find a little pamphlet for a couples counseling retreat that they're going to go, and they're going to like really try and make it through. Because I don't think it's a thing he's ever been able to articulate what happened and why he's so fixated.
No, and he might not. He might not ever actually articulate it. It doesn't necessarily seem like something that has completely overwhelmed his life, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it does. Right. Sometimes it doesn't. And in his case, he's gotten married, he's had kids. And he even had enough sense of self or repression of it to just say, okay, yeah, we will move.
Or maybe
into
it was
this
like
house.
an immersion therapy idea. Like it was just like, I'm going to go back and face this and then like overcome it that way, which is even, And then obviously the opposite turned out to be true.
Yeah. And then Jan is able to, after the control burn, she gets a job there. She doesn't have to do the big, long commute. Of course, their youngest daughter has left.
Yeah.
She's gone. She ran away from home and she's not coming back.
And they took the VCR with them.
And so it I think they took two VCRs with them.
Well, you want to know why that is? There is actually a design reason based on that.
They didn't want to design a VCR?
Well, they couldn't get the rights to the X-Files season 1 because it would have been way too expensive. So the VHSs are in a clump. There's never a VHS just by itself, so you can't ever be tempted to pick it up because they knew if you picked it up, you'd want to put it in something.
Of course.
And so they were like, and so the reason the VCRs are gone and the end of the story is the way it is because they were like, okay, we have to have a dramaturgical reason why there aren't any VCRs in this house.
We're hawking the Sanyos and we're getting to Central California.
I hear those VCRs out California way. Oh, we have to talk about Christmas Duck.
Christmas Duck is a very cool prop.
A Christmas Duck is the best thing, and you can bring him home. You can bring him to his little nest in the attic, and when you do, there's a little prompt that says, "There you go, Christmas Duck."
Well, and the prompts are great because that's the only time you really get Katie's character at all. The player you are playing as, you can, I guess, read item descriptions in the inventory.
Yeah, and like the postcards here and there.
Like when you discover your dad's porn, it just says, "Gosh, Dad." Instead of saying the name of the object you can pick up, which is usually what it is, it's just like pencil, cup, note, pick up note, put
I
back.
believe it's Gentleman Magazine is the name of the magazine.
Yeah. And then when you find that same, a different issue of the same magazine in your sister's room, it just says, "Gosh, Sam." And then you can, you're rifling through the drawers of your parents' bedroom, and so you can find a condom in there.
You can indeed. It says barf when you pick it when you look at it, and then when you pick it up and put it back down, she says, "There's nothing I don't hate right now."
I also have to point out, when we're talking about environmental jokes, the publishing house.
God, you just can't go in an episode without doing a Star Trek reference, can you?
Fuck you. Fuck you. I didn't make the reference. The publishing house on it is Harcourt Fenton Books, which is a reference to a classic Star Trek character, Harcourt Fenton Mudd, who has his own lesbian love story to unfold in the Star Trek series, except that he is a man who loves women and is therefore just a straight guy. But it's a type of lesbian, though, straight guys.
Oh, boy.
Keeping it in. Fuck you. The other great TV show reference is the cigarettes in Sam's room, which are Morley cigarettes. Now, Morley cigarettes, that's a brand that you will see in a bunch of TV shows. It's like it used to be sort of the go-to, like, you know, some production designer somewhere just wrote up a logo and that became Morley cigarettes. But if you've ever watched the X-Files, that's the only thing you will ever associate them with, because the cigarette smoking man is always smoking Morley's. And they make a point of actually saying the name and all of that. So Morley, of course, becomes a big icon in X-Files lore.
And I mean, the house is littered with X-Files stuff, because then, you know, start teasing maybe there's aliens involved.
And also just because Gillian Anderson is important to a lot of people's gay awakening.
Well, speaking of gay awakenings, there is one particular person who has said that Gone Home reflected their coming out story and their coming of age story better than most. And that person is Zoe Quinn, which I think is a very good way to segue into the reaction against Gone Home, or I wouldn't say it's against Gone Home itself, but Gone Home got kind of swept up into the whole tidal wave of Gamergate.
And to be honest, Gone Home only kind of got swept up into it. They didn't, I don't think they really ever suffered a whole lot. It's a little bit more of just like a baseline virtue signal. If you're like one of the Gamergate losers, like you just bring up Gone Home because of its agenda.
And let us be clear, they are losers.
Just sad little weirdos that I have no sympathy for whatsoever, who decided that they were going to go on a crusade. I don't think we have to go into a big discussion of like what Gamergate was, because that'll be its own thing. I kind of like this sort of non-linear exploration through reaction in the video game world. But, you know, Gone Home, when it came out, people genuinely liked it. Lots of critics. It sold incredibly well.
Yeah, much better than I think Fulbright was ever anticipating.
There are other walking simulators from the time that also got quite a bit of press that I was looking at, and there was like, oh, no, this doesn't have anywhere near as much. You know, like reviews for Gone Home on Steam are mostly positive. It's like 11,000 reviews. And you know, I looked at like That Dragon Cancer. That's another one that came out around the same time.
Oh, yeah.
It's also just a walking simulator.
Game ripped out my heart.
It has about 1/10 of the reviews, right? The same sort of level of positivity. And I remember seeing a lot of press for that as well.
Yeah, I played That Dragon Cancer, and it's a hard play, man.
And of course, Gone Home is well liked by Kotaku and well liked by Polygon, and I guess,
which it got Game of the Year in 2013.
And of course, there's just like people are like, oh no, not Polygon! I hate Polygon so much. They talk about bad game and say it's good game when I like other good game that they say is not better than bad game. I don't like no.
Monarch, get out of here.
That is not. Come on,
It's close. It's not. It's the same placement.
He's like he gets a lot higher anyway. But they're just so stupid. I've been just sitting and gargling down all of this swill that they put out. But yeah, Gone Home has never been like a major flashpoint, like say Depression Quest or even Night in the Woods a little bit later on, or like the Star Wars The Last Jedi or Captain Marvel or whatever thing they obsessed. No one really seemed to obsess about Gone Home. It was always like, well, and then also Gone Home, you know. And they love to come up with all of these idiotic complaints about it. They're like, you can speed run it in 47 seconds. And it's like, it's a speed run. You also don't actually see anything. Like it's just not.
You can beat Ocarina of Time in like what, 12 minutes?
Right. Like it doesn't mean anything. Yeah, it's 2 hours long. It's 3 hours long. They're like, it's too expensive for what it is. And it's like, well, who cares? Just don't buy it. And also, two, no one buys it at full price, right? This is the PC gaming industry. Everyone gets it as part of a bundle, or it's like $2, or it's like free from Epic Game Store, or like PlayStation Plus or something like that. Like, this is not a game that anyone purchases at full price. Some people do.
And even if you do, it's worth the price of admission, I think.
People, like I said, people like it. People liked it at launch. They've given it away for free on multiple occasions. Like the gamer, TM, is a person who only understands things through the lens of consumption.
Do you own the trademark to the gamer?
No, I wish, because then I would kill people with it. That's what you can do with trademarks. They let you kill people.
Mickey Mouse has a lot of blood on his hands.
That's why 007 is trademarked. It's his license to kill.
Oh, that was really good.
No, it wasn't, but I thank you.
I thought it was really good.
But
I guess that's why we're doing this podcast together.
The gamers TM can only analyze things through the lens of being a consumer in the market. They can't even look at things like with like actual market logic because, again, they have no leg to stand on with Gone Home because it did very well in the market.
Right.
But like you can see that their problem is not the fact that it's a walking simulator, that it has no fail state, that it has no puzzles, that you can speedrun it in 40 seconds. Because you could say a lot of that, maybe not the speedrun part because of the way it works, but you can say a lot of that about That Dragon Cancer, right? And people have issues with That Dragon Cancer because it gets very Christian at the end. And people feel like it's proselytizing to them. And well, to be honest, it is. That's the goal of the makers of that game. They want people to become Christians because it helped them so much. And they think that there is something larger to that. And it's fine if you feel offended by that too. Like, I get it.
Sure.
But no one got mad about That Dragon Cancer. Like, there was not a movement to go after this game that came out at the same time or within a year or two. It had a bunch of praise. Maybe it didn't end up on some best of lists, but I am sure it did because I remember just reading a lot of people's reactions to it. And there's no gay. That's it. The thing that they see the gay, they go, why the gay sin? Why is that there? Why are you doing?
Get out of here, Adam Sandler.
Why?
Go back to BioShock 2. Go fight Jon Stewart.
Why the lady touch another lady and likes the lady and kiss her? Why do? No, you're ruining my I just want to I want to jump on a Mario, shoot a gun at Mario. Please, you're hurt. Stop.
I feel like I'm in hell.
That's what it's like watching these fucking videos. One video, this person was like, you start with this absolutely dog shit name, Caitlin Greenbrier. Like,
what is that?
Fucking cares that her last name is Greenbrier? That's what you're mad about? They love to bring up the speedrun thing, which is insipid. It's just so imbecilic. And it always...
Well, I think it's very interesting because it comes back to what you were saying about putting video games in toy stores and specifically putting them into the boy section, the gendering of video games sort of from their inception, how this one marketing move has led to such horrific toxicity.
Nintendo causes societal illness with this one weird trick. Genders hate him.
That's the clickbait article for this podcast. But no, just the idea that that this is made specifically for boys and specifically for boys at a certain age range has led to a lot of repetition of the same stories being told over and over and over again. And playing Gone Home was such a revelation because it revealed a world to me that at once felt very familiar and was also very distant. I did not grow up as a gay girl in the 90s. So there's a lot of points of reference that I don't really have, especially with the soundtrack for this one.
I had no idea what any of those bands were. Me neither. I didn't know that was all real existing music from the era. I thought they had written all of that for the game. I honestly didn't have a single clue the first time I played.
I was so sad that I had not encountered this music before because it slaps so hard, and it's such a great part of the game.
It's a good era and a good region for music. You know, there was such an incredible rebellion that didn't know how to exert itself, but was, God damn it, gonna fucking do it anyway. Which, in a way, Gamergate kind of is that too. They don't know what they're pointed at, but they're gonna point at something. And unfortunately, instead of getting it out like in a group of people and like building a community, all they did was decide that girl can't. She can't kiss another girl. I can't do it. Why they put the zombies in my lesbians? I want the zombies, not the lesbians.
And none of these people, I feel played the game.
No, well, of course not.
the
No,
only
they watched videos and then they complained about how it's $30, even though they all have gotten 3 copies of it through Humble Bundles. And they try to get mad about that too. They're like, oh, it's like it sticks to these Humble Bundles like a parasite. It's like, it's not a parasite, it's a symbiote. You spent $5 for just one of those games anyway. Then you got 6 other games. One of them was Gone Home.
Which is a fucking masterpiece.
Yeah, and you don't want to play it because you're just a sad little virgin and you're just sad that a fictional video game girl is getting more pussy than you. And they rehashed all of this for The Last of Us 2.
We don't stick around on the note long enough to know how far they've gotten.
Yeah.
But yes, it is heavily implied that they are actively sexual in their relationship. What I did this time when I read the note was I just read the bottom part. It's just like, here are the places that we can that would cause the least amount of problems, the car and stuff. And honestly, just recalling my teenage years of having a car, like I was just like, oh man, those logistics really hit home because, like, yeah, where are you gonna go? I drive a Nissan Sentra. There's no room.
Needed to join the Subaru gang, buddy.
My mom will never listen to this podcast, is what I'm realizing. She can't. She's gonna know too much about my Nissan
Just
Sentra,
gonna get a
and she's
text.
also going to know
What happened in the Nissan, AJ? Like, I am liberated now, Mom. I played Gone Home.
I got that he wasn't just a horse. Okay, there were other reasons not to like your show,
especially in season 1.
Yeah. No, I'd like to read a quote, if I could, from when Steve Gaynor gave his speech at the GDC conference. Why is Gone Home a game? Which is great. If you have the chance, watch it. He opens the show by saying, I would like to, for those of you who have not played Gone Home, I would like to show a trailer for you now. And he plays a trailer and it says, "This summer, Katie Greenbrier goes home," and then the house explodes. and like this like hardcore like guitar starts playing, and it's like, and then it just says "Gun Home," and it's just footage of Gone Home, but they've put Doom over it. So you're like kicking down doors into rooms and shooting like demons as they're coming for you, but it's just the assets from Gone Home. He like comes back after, he's like, just so everyone knows, that's actually not what the game is at all. And it's very endearing.
The original build of Gone Home was done in Amnesia.
And you can tell, actually, from those early screenshots, it's very dark and very
Amnesia's
bleak. Like,
devs,
it's horrifying.
As a rule, like, they made their engine for one game. They do not let anyone else use it for, they'll let people mod or whatever. They don't have a problem with that. But they don't have, like, documentation. They don't want to support it. That's a whole industry on its own, is like making an engine that's worth using for other games.
Right.
So they've gotten a lot of people to send emails to them, and they always just reply with, no, try Unity. And so Gone Home was one of them. He actually, you can play it now. You can play the original build of the house. There's not really anything in it, but you can just put it into your Amnesia files and play it.
Oh, wow.
You can find it online. Isn't that cool?
Is it fun? Did you do it?
No, I haven't done it. I actually only just saw it like right before we started recording, so I haven't done it.
Well, the original screenshots of it look very Bioshocky too. In fact, the only part of like that of the final game that they were like, oh, this is Rapture entirely, is when you enter into the greenhouse and it has like the Art Deco kind of design.
That's also an accident.
He walked into the room for the first time. He was like, "Welcome to Rapture," and he talks about that in his in the commentary. But at his speech, people ask, "Why is Gone Home a game? And why isn't it a different medium?" And I agree with him in that I think there's no other medium this could possibly work in, except for maybe immersive theater.
Yeah.
But even then, I don't know. I don't know if I would necessarily get the same feelings that I do with the audio diaries playing exactly at the point where they need
it's one of those
or like
things where either you feel it or you don't feel it. And, it's not for everyone. There's no problem with disliking Gone Home. It's funny when you try to make an...
I think there's something wrong with that, and that's the hill I'll
there's
die on.
Absolutely nothing wrong with it. I know
fine.
lots of people who live an alternative lifestyle like you who don't like Gone Home. I just think that you shouldn't do that around children.
You should always like Gone Home around children.
But like, no, it's a specific kind of game. It's very short.
Yeah, you got to be in a specific kind of mood.
And if you don't feel it, you don't feel it. But like, you're walking around a house. That's the entire experience of it, is walking around a house. You can't recreate that in a book. You can't recreate that in a movie. It is you walking around and feeling enveloped by a space.
I had a friend who played Gone Home who didn't like it because the entire time they were so scared that something was going to jump out at them, which is a completely fair thing. Like, if you're not a fan of horror, and I'm not a fan of horror, but it was spoiled for me ahead of time that there weren't going to be jumps. And then there was that one where the light bulb exploded.
It's
and
a quiet one, but yeah,
it is a quiet one. But I totally get if people don't not like Gone Home. It really does work for me on like every single level. And one of the big reasons for that, and what he talks about a lot in Steve Gaynor in his speech, what he talks a lot about is how what even makes a game? What is a game? Is it bursting into a room and shooting up things all the time, or can it just be a conversation between a creator and a player, and establishing boundaries for what the rules are of the world and playing within those? And he said this quote, which I love to pieces, which is, "Any entertainment, any art worth a damn allows you to understand people better." And I think one of the greatest things about Gone Home is it's just sheer power of empathy.
Yeah.
And the way that video games are uniquely designed to make you feel and care about other people.
And I think it becomes a bit of a watershed there too, in terms of storytelling, in terms of really showing, you can do this. You can build empathy for characters. You can build empathy for characters who are off screen. You can even
who you never see pictures
of.
I mean, I guess
build
there's paintings,
empathy for a character that you control in the first person who never speaks, and that you can understand that character is separate from you and give them a sense of being and feel affection for them in addition to these people that you read about. And that has been so important for other game developers, even all the way up at the AAA level, to say, you can do it. And it can actually be incredibly simple if you just do it. And it's something that is more evident in a good piece of immersive theater than what you might get playing a number of video games.
Yeah, that's true.
And
because I mean, then you have like a connection there in person.
And and everybody in theater is always like, well, we do this. It's about connection. We want to do this to connect to other people and feel the way. And it's like, but we do actually want to do that. And it's really cool to see a game that decided that its minimum viable product was going to be just about that. Just that. And then they'll add a little bit of ghost stuff in there too. And even the uncle doesn't get redemption, but his story also gets a conclusion and he gets to be removed from the house.
It's an exorcism.
And that's another funny thing is that like when people are complaining, they're like, there's not even a ghost. And I was like, there was absolutely a ghost.
Yeah, no.
What game are you
100%.
playing?
Yeah,
it's totally a ghost.
She has documented evidence of seeing him.
Yeah.
Like walking around the house.
Yeah, they exorcised him. And there's probably just some other ghosts also still there. Other energy that, whether you believe in that stuff in real life or not, and of course that will influence your opinion on a very naturalistic game. Like there's a ghost.
I worked on a cruise ship for 6 months, and while I was on there, I worked on a magic show. I was an illusionary magic specialist for 6 months, which is not a real job, but it also didn't. It certainly felt like one. The assistant magic specialist had no idea what magic did. We were mostly just actors and dancers who could go on at any time for when the leads who were acting in the show went out sick. Like we were there for backup, but they were also using us to run tech. But the lead magic specialist was a magician in his own right, and also a bodybuilder, and also a ghost hunter.
Oh.
As it turns out.
What's his at?
He would talk a lot about ghost hunting because, I don't necessarily know if I believe in ghosts like the way that we imagine them, but he said he believes that ghosts are energy. It's just like a remnant of our energy that we leave behind. And the show that we worked on, The Illusionarium, had a large just collection of antiques, mostly from northern New York, that they had put on the ship and made it look like, old stuffy and like old-timey magic kind of a magic parlor kind of idea. And he said, the thing that's really stuck with me is that he said, anything that you touch in life that you imbue with significance, you put a little bit of your energy into that thing. And so I asked him, well, we have a lot of antiques here. Are there ghosts here? And he said, of course there are. And what's so beautiful, I think, about Gone Home is you're not just exploring a house with furniture. You're exploring a house with furniture that has been imbued with meaning by everyone involved in the game, and it is a ghost story in the truest sense.
Yeah.
You are absorbing their stories into you.
Yeah.
And I can't think of a better form of empathy than that.
It's at the highest level of what we do, and they've only improved on their approach since then. There are incredible directions that we haven't even thought of yet that we will continue to go into that will influence other games, that will influence other theater, that will then influence other games. And the fact that the backlash to it is of course present because it came out at a time where there was this movement of just aimless, nihilistic shitheadedness. You know, in one sense they won because gaming journalism has been broken down to its barest parts because all journalism has broken down. But they didn't accomplish that themselves. That just happened. And they don't have anything that they want, even though they do have everything they could want. And they're still just very angry.
Yeah.
You know, Gamergate as it is mostly just dead. But there's still just a lot of people who hang out on stupid forums who just try to get mad at things, try to find things to get mad at,
because that was their community
and
for so long.
They have nothing else. They have no other lens with which to look at the world other than simply being a consumer of video games TM. And this game manages to, and has managed historically in its presence, to just float above it all. And be that rare opportunity, that thing that came out at just the right time with the right people to find an incredible amount of success. There are a lot of games, there are a lot of developers who are not so lucky, and that's a shame. But I'm very, very happy that they got to do this, and more importantly, that we got to experience it.
When we look at gaming history in the future, my hope is that the Gamergate stuff and that very particular subset of gaming culture can be resigned to the basement, tucked away in a dark corner and a secret shame. And I hope that the future of video gaming can strive for the empathetic heights of that attic and that one photo of a locket being put together. I'm the worst of all possible AJs.
I'm the worst of all possible Brians.
Now go home!
Well, hey, look at us. It's another episode in the bag. As always, we would like to thank our sponsors, which are not a mini golf course / gun range, but in fact, our sponsors on Patreon, including Aeneas Hemphill, Ben Ferber, Benjamin R. Alford, Dominic Russo, Nate Netzley, Octavia Immersive, with special thank you to Ashley Stoneman and Nicola Donov. All right. Have a good night, everybody.